Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our second Fireside chat on alternative service delivery and client outreach. We're going to go ahead and get started in 1 minute. So if you need to get some coffee or get settled, go ahead and do that now. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to our second Fireside chat, this one on alternative service delivery and client outreach. My name is Dara Durtinsky. I'm the Associate Director of Network Building at Prosperity Now. On today's Fireside chat, we'll be recording this, so anyone who registered will be receiving the recording by email about a week after. All webinar attendees are muted to ensure sound quality, but we want you to be able to ask your questions or share your thoughts anytime, and you can do this by typing into the text box of your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you experience any technical issues during this webinar, you can email gotomeeting@prosperitynow.org. Today, we'll be starting by framing this conversation that we're having in this series of conversations this month. And then we'll jump right in with our conversation with Karen Arista. We'll take some questions and any final thoughts, and then we'll go into next steps and close. Again, today you'll be hearing from me and Karen Arista, the Financial Stability Partnership Coordinator at United Way of Southern Cameron County. And let's frame this conversation. So the Taxpayer Opportunity Network has nearly 8,000 members, and it's our national network that connects VITA programs with the resources they need to help low-income workers get ahead of the system often designated to leave them behind. Over the past year plus, VITA sites were hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, and in 2020, due to lockdowns across the country, many sites had to close their doors in the middle of the tax season and then prepare to reopen virtually ahead of the July 15th deadline. And that virtual work has had to continue into this year. Thus, it was imperative that VITA sites implement alternative tax preparation services and recruit volunteers for virtual work and work across coalitions and communities to serve taxpayers. This presented a new challenge, especially in underserved communities where the digital divide may have prevented taxpayers from accessing VITA services, and for those who are non-filers from accessing their stimulus payments. So, with generous support from the Rockefeller Foundation, Prosperity Now launched the Ensuring and Expanding Access to Tax Prep Services in Underserved Communities project, a long title, in the fall. And this aimed to ensure that economically vulnerable households in 6 of the nation's most vulnerable communities were able to access high quality tax prep services for free, claim the EITC and other tax credits, and access ancillary supports and resources to improve their household financial health during this public health and economic crisis. We again worked with 6 communities, mostly in the southern United States. I hope you're able to see this map well, but just so you know, we worked in Macon, Georgia, Greenville, South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Hot Springs, Arkansas, and of course in Brownsville, Texas. And we'll be hearing from our Brownsville partners today. If you joined us last week, you heard a bit about volunteer management for alternative service delivery with our partner, Dolores Hurst. in Louisiana. And today, of course, we're focusing on alternative service delivery and client outreach. These are all topics that we talked about with our cohort members in peer calls. They also receive some one-on-one technical assistance to support their efforts in moving into this virtual service delivery model. And on June 28th, we'll be hosting our third and final Fireside chat about engaging partners in a coalition to advance your cause, whether that be additional services and outreach, or in policy advocacy like a state EITC or a federal EITC. So again, today we'll be talking with Karen Arista, a Financial Stability Partnership Coordinator at the United Way of Southern Cameron County in Brownsville, Texas. And we'll also be hearing from a colleague of hers, so we're really excited to hear more. And with that being said, let's jump into the conversation, which I'm pulling up my questions now. There we go. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to talk to you. I wanted to start with our first question, which is just about what does your VITA program usually look like when it comes to service delivery, so outside of COVID-19?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen, and thanks, Dara, for giving us this opportunity and for letting us join the cohort and peer group this year. We've really enjoyed that. If you saw that little red dot way down in the tip of Texas, we are on the U.S.-Mexico border. Our VITA, the United Way of Southern Cameron County, is the lead agent of a VITA coalition, which normally runs about 21 VITA sites pre-pandemic. We cover a 2-county region. Of course, these are big Texas counties along the Gulf of Mexico and the U.S.-Mexico border, the very tip of Texas. Our clients that we serve are predominantly Hispanic. So at our VITA sites, our survey results there is we survey clients. We serve 97% Hispanic clients. Most have low literacy rates and low digital literacy. About, say, 78% actually speak Spanish as their principal language. English is a second, their limited English proficient designation. And so most of our services are delivered in Spanish by the community it serves. It's very important for the community we serve that the tax preparers, the volunteers are usually from the community that we serve. And we do very carefully create that environment of trust and cultural competency and language, that bilingual language needed to serve that population. 38% of our clients do receive EITC. It's interesting that percentage has declined as we've increased virtual methodologies, because that starts redirecting you into college students and a lot of people that don't necessarily aren't that family group that we're targeting. So it's interesting that depending on our outreach year by year in previous years, when we really focus in on those the childbearing age families with children was when our EITC numbers go up. And it's really dependent on our marketing outreach for the year. And sometimes we're so busy we don't quite focus on that as much. And we really see it in our demographic outcomes and data outcomes. So our normal pre-pandemic, like I said, we're a coalition of 21 sites, 2 counties. We are over 5,000 returns. Normally our pre-pandemic, we were at 5,159 returns. We have a large number of volunteers. We're running 448 volunteers. We have a big high school outreach in our coalition. So of those 448 volunteers. We had 175 that were high school students, most of those certified in tax law. We also have a large contingent of college students, so another 75 college students. We recruit from accounting classes, tax accounting classes at University of Texas and at our community college, Texas Southmost College. The remainder of our volunteers are our employee groups from some of our partner sites, and then general community members that are often retirees or people in the job market. So we love to bring the job seekers that are between jobs. They're often fabulous volunteers, and then help us connect as they find jobs and go out in the community. It just builds that network in the community that we love. So in our high school program, pre-pandemic, we had 11 high school VITA sites. These are sites that are actually hosted and run at local high schools. The tax preparers are high school students. The intake personnel are high school students. They're run by volunteer site coordinators that are usually business teachers in the high school, the CTE departments, which is career and technical business programming. We actually have partnered with school districts to create curriculum that includes VITA. So we've done a lot of work with actually working with the school districts to provide a venue for VITA. We work with 6 school districts. So we have some large school districts down here. And so among the 6 school districts, we have 11 high school-based VITA sites. We train as coalition lead. Most of our sites have volunteer site coordinators. We bring on seasonal, United Way brings on seasonal part-time staff. We are a VITA grant recipient. We do that through grant funds to help implement the program and provide support to implement throughout the partner sites. So that's what we normally look like. If we jump, do you want me to jump ahead to COVID?
Let's talk about what happened over the past year plus. Mm-hmm.
So when COVID hit, we were, several of our high school sites were wrapping up their service because they usually run for 6 weeks and then they tailor off. Then we have a few sites that power on till the end of the tax season in April. We had just certified a whole new tax accounting class that was just about to jump into service when all of a sudden all sites closed, all volunteers got pulled off. So any volunteer in a group, like the schools immediately pulled their students out. So that first year we lost all volunteers. We were able to regroup with 2 sites that came back 2 weeks later, and we ran, that first year through the summer, that delayed extended filing season. We had 2 sites running very small not staffed, just very few people. And we piloted a curbside service, curbside drop-off at one site, and our other site piloted a do-it-yourself virtual program where they tried to pull all the pieces together of DocuSign and send. They didn't use Zendesk, but all these providers. So we had this nice little pilot. At the end of that summer, we discovered we loved curbside drop-off. It worked fabulously, but it was summertime and warm, and it's South Texas. It was great. It's a little different in January. And then with our site that tried virtual, we were like, you cannot cobble it together virtual. It's not secure. And I had always stayed away from virtual because client security is utmost. And I didn't really like what I saw. It was just too difficult for our partner site, Community Development Corporation, that did the virtual. So our learning curve was, at the end of that, we have to get on with Get Your Refund, because I had looked into it the previous year. We were not involved in the first year of the pilot, but our coalition partner, CDCB, had gotten their way into the coalition at the end of the previous tax season. So with their license, we were able to come on as a coalition. And that was the major outcome, was that we need, if we're going to do virtual, and we just had to provide a virtual way to do taxes. It needed to be secure, and it needed to be safe. And so we were able to get on the second year of the GetYourRefund.org's pilot with Code for America. To do that, we partnered with our sister United Way, so that we're actually serving the entire lower sector, the Rio Grande Valley, which is 4 counties. Within the Get Your Refund, so this past tax season, for 2021, we ended up operating 60% of our sites, which is higher than a lot of the coalitions in the country. As we were talking with other VITA coalitions, we kept 60% of our sites, which were 13 sites, but most of those had severely reduced volunteers, severely reduced access to clients, but it kept our partner network active. We severely were cut by volunteers. So we ran with 48% of previous year volunteers. So everyone who does VITA knows that it takes a volunteer sitting in a seat preparing a tax return to serve the public. And if your volunteers aren't there, you're not serving them. So our capacity to serve was severely limited. We ended up preparing 52% of our return goal from the previous year. So we felt pretty good that with these services, running with 48% of our volunteers, we were able to do 50% of what we had planned, 52% of what we had planned to do. So I think it was the alternative service models that got us through this difficult year. Now, with Get Your Refund, we implemented it in 3 ways. So number one was, as it's purported to be, 100% virtual experience, where the client's at home, they get on their smartphone, they upload everything. Everything's done virtually, remote. They finish the return through the program and then sign by DocuSign. They're at home the whole time. We tried that. So we had some virtual teams we recruited to just do that. Now in our area, because we serve people with a barrier to English, with very low literacy, I'd say about 40% of the people we serve are they're lucky if they got a GED. So they're not high school graduates, might have a GED. We have a lot of people that just have a 3rd grade education in this area. So they can't do that. So our alternative to serve the majority of our clients was we piloted facilitated intake sites using Get Your Refund. So we had a few sites that opened up so that they would just do intakes, and clients could come, have the face-to-face they need, bring all their documents, fill out the intake sheet on paper like they usually do. And then the sites had tablets where they just had intake people there, no tax preparers, and would just upload and create the case management file, which is what Get Your Refund is, a case management system for VITA clients. And so the intake personnel would create the file, the registration for that client, upload all their documents. Then the client goes home. They have the interaction with the tax preparer by distance with telephone, email. But then when the tax return was prepared and ready to be signed, this clientele cannot do DocuSign because a lot of them don't even have email accounts, to tell you the truth. So our intake site might have to help them create an email. So they would come back to the intake site as a pickup site, where then they would physically sign the return. So that was facilitated, what we called facilitated intake and pickup for Get Your Refund. Our third version was at a major high volume site, which is at Texas Southmost College, where we were required, because of COVID protocols on this college campus, that we had to separate clients from tax preparers. So we had, so we used Get Your Refund as the case management from front of house to back of house. So we had intake personnel just sitting there uptaking, creating client files, uploading documents. And then the tax preparer that's just in the next room, we had our group of tax preparers, who a lot of were college students, then download the case files and prepare the taxes. And then they're talking to each other on phone. And then limited in-person interaction. So those were kind of the three methods we used to get your refund. We've discovered that it's that facilitated intake and then using it just to facilitate drop-off. So we kind of, our third example there was kind of like get your refund drop-off is what we were calling it.
Yeah.
Just to facilitate the drop-off.
Yeah. We're finding a lot of sites have had to move into that model too.
Yes.
I'm actually interested a little bit more in, you know, the client outreach portion of that. You know, how did, you know, you had to sort of adjust how you delivered services in order to serve your clients, but how did you get them in the door after all this?
Mayela is going to talk about that. Let me pull her in real quick. Let me introduce Mayela Moreno. She's our VITA Services Coordinator. This is Mayela. And she was tasked with implementing Get Your Refund this year. So why don't you address about how we outreach clients?
So we realized the challenge that you were describing about, you know, we still need to build trust with the client, but also reduce face-to-face interaction. So we realized that Get Your Refund was a great tool to do that. Like Karen was saying, to open an intake-only site. So clients were able to see like a familiar face, but again, at the same time, we were reducing face-to-face interaction, which was really helpful. And we had volunteers preparing tax returns at a different location, providing the same service, the same with quality, and following all the IRS guidelines. Another tool that was really helpful was My Free Taxes. So we were promoting My Free Taxes since this year the service improved. It supported many forms that were not available last year. So this year it was a great product to promote. Also, Acuity. We implemented a calendar, a scheduling calendar that allowed clients to schedule appointments, reschedule, and even cancel appointments online. So it was really helpful to do that, to provide that link to our partners, to clients, and that way they were able to help us to get clients to the sites and promoting information. So that was a great resource for partners promoting our services. Also, every year we provide a calendar, a site calendar with the list of all the sites, hours of operations, address, and the type of service they provide, like in person or online. And that was really helpful to have that contact with our partners and provide the information to them. Also, and because we were using Acuity, we realized that our clients tend to schedule appointments by family. We had, when we were rescheduling appointments because of the winter storms, we had to reschedule some appointments, and we called a lady that rescheduled for her brother, sister, mother. It was like 5 different family members. And so we realized that that was a great way to spread our information or services and what we were doing. And they were also spreading the word that this year was different. It was not like face-to-face interaction. and it was a drop-off service. So it was really nice to then call a client and realize that they already knew all the information because they talked to someone else, a family member. So that was really helpful. And in the Hispanic community, that's really important to build trust, using like getting to know a family member, and then they will spread the information for us.
So I think part of what happened this year is the messaging was too difficult. So we did not send a message about how VITA was different. So people showed up expecting VITA to be like it had been, face-to-face, and people wanted to be face-to-face with their tax preparer. And I talked with people running other VITA coalitions that had the same issue. And so what we ended up doing was spending a lot of time explaining up front that it was a different interface, and you just were not going to be sitting with your favorite volunteer, because we have a lot of high retention on volunteers and people feel like it's their personal tax preparer.
Yeah.
And they were upset that they couldn't go in there and talk to Lupe or talk to Pam, and they know their names, you know. So our intake personnel, and Mayela was the one working with most of them directly this year, but there was a lot of conversations about how exhausting and how much more time the client up front on the reception and intake with clients, just explaining that they couldn't sit face to face. And that took a lot of time this year, big learning curve. We did not try to send out that message. It was just too complicated of a message.
Yeah, it sounded like the bigger risk would have been in the message than explaining when they got there what would be happening. Yeah.
Yes.
We only have a couple minutes left, and we have one audience question. But before I get to that, I want to hear kind of quickly any lessons that you're carrying into the future, or even just sort of advice that you'd want to tell the audience today about your experience.
Thanks, Sarah. I really think that Get Your Refund is a tool of the future. You know, knowing where the IRS is going with just tax preparation, they're moving to virtual venues, and Get Your Refund is developed with the Internal Revenue Service. So I'm happy to be involved in that this year. To see them develop out this program it's a beautiful thing. It still has a few issues that need to be worked out. Number one, if anyone's listening, is the roles on users need to be stepped up for security. So we had a very last minute issue where we could not implement it in high schools because we had been promised that the user roles would be like in TaxSlayer and limited, but any user who got on could see every return in the whole system. Huge security risk, which we hope they will address. If that is addressed, then it will be a key tool for the future. So I just really encourage that and loved partnering with them. It was beautifully designed and implemented program this year. Number two is working with low income clients, keeping it low tech when possible is the most adaptable for our client base. So we had lots of sites that thought they were going to do virtual and curbside, and when it came down to it, was like, Karen, we're just doing low tech paper. That's what works best.
Yeah.
The trust is extremely important, as Mayela mentioned. So having tax preparers and staff that are part of the community you're serving, especially serving Hispanic or any language population, you need to have preparers that speak their language and have cultural competency. So building trust is very important. Getting the message out, connecting Get Your Refund with United Way is what we're going to work on more for next year. We were not able to make that connection this year. So we did have some trust issues up front with, well, what is Get Your Refund, and, you know, who are you people? So we'll be working on that messaging connecting it to United Way's work in our community. Those, and then there's just the strength of partnership. We survived this year because of our partner networks.
Right.
Each partner group reached out to its target population because they work with that population. Our biggest partners that stayed with us this year were our school-based programs, high schools, college, university. They stayed engaged with us. The sites that left were all our, it was fascinating to me. Any government associated site closed up front. Nope, not doing it. Can't serve the public. I was like, what? Our utility board, our county site, our city site, like done. So that was quite interesting. But the ones that hung in there with us, we really appreciated what they did. So hopefully we'll bring them all back on board next year. Our entire coalition, none of them said we're out and done. They were just like the ones that knew up front they wouldn't be allowed to serve, told us up front. But they said we'll be back as soon as the COVID restrictions are done. So thank you for your support.
Yeah, we did get a few questions about your work with high schools, and so we're out of time for today. Apologies to the audience, but we're going to think about how maybe we can do an interview for our Taxpayer Opportunity Network newsletter, maybe to help share some of that information, because I know you've put a lot of time and effort into that partnership with the local schools, not just high schools, but universities. So hopefully we can share that information soon. But I'm going to move into closing this out today. So let's see, final thoughts. Basically, we just want to share next steps with you. You may have already seen this in your inboxes, but we sent out an end of season survey to you. The deadline was originally today, but we're extending that to June 25th because it's important information that helps us see where the VITA field is, but also helps the Taxpayer Opportunity Network and Prosperity Now tailor our resources and opportunities for you all. Visit our advocacy center to stay up to date with advocacy efforts. There's been a lot of movement recently around, CTC, EITC, so we want to make sure that you are all getting involved. When you close out of this webinar, you'll see something pop up for a survey about this. Again, this just helps us figure out if we're, providing the best resources, webinars, opportunities for you. And to stay informed, we also suggest joining the Tax Roundtable listserv. We'll be mailing out this PowerPoint and the recording of this fireside chat to everyone, so you'll get that information straight to your inbox. So again, Karen, Mayala, I really want to thank you for joining us today and keeping us informed and letting us know how the past year plus has gone. And thank you all for attending. So we'll see you all on June 28th for our third and final fireside chat. Thank you.
Thank you.